The apartment is listed at $2,300 a month. Inside the application portal, a separate $2 pest control charge appears. The number is now 2,302. Then a small View Details link reveals a mandatory $110 media package the applicant cannot decline. The known monthly totals is now $2,112. And according to the complaint, one required monthly charge is still missing. The renter has not moved in. The lease has not been signed, but walking away may already cost money. This sequence appears in a 2025 FTC and Colorado complaint about a Greystar managed unit at Hamilton Crossing in Riverton, Utah. Greystar disputed the allegations, then agreed to a $24 million resolution and new disclosure requirements without admitting or denying them, except jurisdictional facts. The apartment itself never changed. Same bedrooms, square footage, and address. What changed was the applicant's position in the leasing process. Each stage displayed more of the required monthly cost. If $2,300 is the monthly price, why does a fixed $110 charge appear only under View Details? A renter normally understands rent as the fixed monthly price for the home. Electricity and water may vary. Parking might be a choice. A pet fee applies only if there is a pet. Some costs depend on use. Others depend on the renter's choice. Base rent is also a real number. Greystar described it as a long-standing industry standard. The figure renters and property managers have used for decades to compare apartments. But a fixed monthly charge that cannot be declined creates a different question. What makes it different from the monthly price required to lease the apartment? At Hamilton Crossing, the search result displayed one number. The apartment page repeated it. The application portal added $2. The View Details link added $110. The complaint said a required utility administration charge still did not appear with the other monthly costs. That $112 difference becomes kibi $344 over a 12-month lease before counting the charge still missing. The total became more complete as the applicant moved deeper into the process, and between those screens, the applicant becomes more committed. According to the complaint, applicants at various Greystar managed properties could have to provide personal and financial information and pay to proceed. Application fees ranged from $10 to more than $100, administrative fees from $100 to $300, and holding deposits could reach several $100s. In some arrangements, the withdrawal window was generally 36 to 48 hours. According to the complaint, the lease package could be the first place where all mandatory charges were disclosed, sometimes in addenda more than a dozen pages deep. By then, the applicant might already have paid an application fee, provided bank or card information, and selected a move-in date. If the lease is where the complete monthly price appears, how much commitment came before the price? The application fee is not the second price. It is part of what makes discovering the second price difficult to reverse. Greystar offered a different interpretation. In January 2025, the company said the FTC was attacking a practice used across the rental industry for decades. It said base rent was the standard comparison unit, that technology systems were not built to display every applicable charge, and that no resident at a Greystar managed community paid a fee they had not seen and agreed to in a lease. That position matters. The presence of a charge in a lease addresses whether the contract disclosed and authorized it, but it does not make that charge part of the earlier number the applicant used to compare apartments and decide where to pay to apply. Agreeing to a charge at the end of the process does not put it into the number used to compare apartments at the beginning. Putting every possible expense into one advertised number would not solve the problem. Some costs genuinely cannot be known in advance. Electricity and water depend on use. A pet charge depends on whether the renter has a pet. Parking can be optional. A security deposit can depend on screening. A late fee may never occur. The court order in the Greystar case draws a narrower line. It defines the total monthly leasing price as the entire monthly amount required to lease the property, including mandatory monthly costs or fees. while excluding variable utility costs and optional fees. Remove what varies. Remove what the renter can decline. What remains is the fixed monthly amount required to lease the home. The issue is the unavoidable monthly price known before the applicant commits, not a hypothetical late fee or next summer's electric bill. In a separate FTC case involving single-family rental houses, not apartments, mandatory charges excluded from advertised rent could exceed $1,700 a year, according to the agency. Calling a mandatory charge something other than rent does not make it less recurring. When it is excluded from advertised rent, the first displayed number remains lower. When rent and a mandatory fee both reach the resident's account every month, which one appears in the largest type on the listing? The issue extends beyond one Utah apartment. The FTC described Greystar as the nation's largest multifamily property manager, overseeing more than 800,000 units at the time of the complaint. The agency alleged that mandatory charges excluded from advertised prices had cost consumers hundreds of millions of dollars since at least 2019. In the separate case involving rental houses, Invitation Homes agreed to a $48 million settlement order. In March 2026, the FTC said it was sending more than $47.2 million to 131 eligible consumers. A 2025 report cited in the FTC's rulemaking found that more than 70% of renters said they had paid at least one mandatory charge on top of rent. That does not mean 70% were deceived. It shows that charges outside base rent are common. In December 2025, the FTC sent warning letters to 13 property management software providers. It said some systems might limit a manager's ability to send a complete monthly price, mandatory charges included, to property websites and listing platforms. These were warnings, not findings that the companies had broken the law. If the property knows the charges, where does the incomplete number enter the system? But the letters intersect with Greystar's own argument about technology. If a property system sends only base rent to a listing site, base rent, not the mandatory monthly total, is the number the shopper compares. The Greystar settlement changed the display requirements. The company agreed to pay $23 million to the FTC and $1 million to Colorado. The court order requires the total monthly leasing price to appear more prominently than any other pricing representation. It also requires pricing information to be disclosed before an initial payment or deposit. Greystar neither admitted nor denied the allegations and maintained that its advertising had been transparent. The company said the agreement clarified the FTC's expectations. Greystar's current pricing pages now display that distinction. The total includes base rent and mandatory monthly costs, while variable, optional, move-in, and move-out charges remain separate. The distinction can be displayed. The larger question is whether every renter sees it before becoming financially committed. Did two settlement orders create one standard for every long-term rental listing? The FTC's broad rule on unfair or deceptive fees took effect on May 12, 2025, but it covers live event tickets and short-term lodging. The agency's own guidance says it does not cover long-term rental housing. In March 2026, the FTC opened a separate advance notice of proposed rulemaking focused on rental housing fees. The comment period closed on April 13th. As of August 24, 2026, the official record shows an advance notice and closed comments, not a final nationwide rental fee rule. The FTC says unfair or deceptive rental fee practices already violate federal law. What does not yet exist is one specific nationwide rental fee rule, setting a uniform display standard for long-term rental listings. Now return to the first screen. At $2,300, the apartment fit the renter's search. At $2,112, with another required charge still missing, the applicant was already inside the leasing process. The first number won the comparison. The second was the monthly price required to lease it.